opinions expressed in the following program are not necessarily those of Shaw Cable Systems or of the station. Through our access policy, we provide the opportunity for community groups and individuals to express their points of view.
You are watching Lit Happens, out on location today at the lovely Divine Goddess on Broadway Avenue. Our guest today is the renowned author Yann Martel. Yann, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you here. It's great to be on location on Broadway on this beautiful summer day. Well, of course we're going to talk about the phenomenal success of your books, but we're going to get to that. But really what I want to talk about first is just you. You as a person, your life, what led you to become a writer?
Oh God, what led me to become a writer? I'd say happenstance.
Yeah?
I wasn't one of these, 12-year-olds writing novels. In my teen years, I was more interested in politics, but I realize now I was interested in the theater of politics rather than policy matters. I became a writer at university, in part because I sort of chose the wrong courses and finally realized I didn't really belong to university, I didn't belong at university. And my reaction to that was to start writing. Don't really know why. I guess I just wanted to express some sort of anxiety. So I wrote a few plays. I wrote some short stories.
Nice.
None of them good,
Oh.
but I enjoyed the process of creating something out of nothing. Contradicting, King Lear, who said nothing will come of nothing. With art, something does come out of nothing. Out of the blank, there's a blank page, there's a canvas, and suddenly on those two there is something. So I just liked creating, and since I don't know how to sing or dance or play an instrument, I learned how to write in school. I just naturally started to write. And I just kept at it, and slowly I got better, and things sort of fell into place.
Nice.
So it wasn't an ambition that I had all my life. It just sort of happened, and now I'm very happy that it happened that way.
I'm happy too. Now, we're going to talk about the success of Life of Pi, and I've read about how it came to its fruition, but can you just tell me about the process of writing Life of Pi?
It was a process no different than my other books. It starts with an idea, just an idea that pops into my head, some sort of the germ of a storyline. Then I do research. So in the case of Life of Pi, it involved doing research in India.
Yes.
I spent 6 months backpacking in India, gathering information on all kinds of things, on zoology, on Hindu temples, on the Indian use, how they speak their English there. And I did another 1.5 years of research back in Montreal, where I was living at the time. And as I'm doing that research, I'm writing notes, gathering ideas, getting new ideas, which lead me to new avenues of research. And after that process, which in the case of Life of Pi took about 2.5 years, then I sit down to write, and I have this whole mass of notes which form the backbone of the novel.
Wow.
So I had like about 300 pages of notes which I'd printed up, cut up, put into different envelopes depending on where they belonged in the novel. So when I started chapter 1, I'd open up the first envelope and I had all kinds of ideas there, and then I'd write. And I've used that process for all my books. So that's the process I used.
Wow. Now, all your books have been successful, but I mean, Life of Pi it exploded. And I just need to ask you, when you were writing it, were you expecting it to explode? Did you think it was going to take off the way that it did?
No. I thought it was a good book. Every person who writes a book thinks it's a good book, obviously, otherwise why would you do it?
Yeah.
So it was a novel that satisfied me. It satisfied my curiosity, it piqued my interest. In a sense, when you're a writer, you're also the very first reader. You're just behind those words that you're writing, you are reading them, and I was a satisfied reader of the book. But there's a lot of good books out there that don't meet as many readers. So, it's a mixture of the fact that it is a good book, but also I had the luck of it coming out at the right time.
Yeah.
So Life of Pi came out on September 11th, 2001, the day of the disaster in New York.
Wow.
And unfortunately, a lot of books were, in a sense, buried under the rubble of that disaster. Mine, luckily, after a few months, people were tired of discussing 9/11, and then they turned their attention to something else, and my book happened to be there, and it sort of caught on. So no, I didn't expect it at all. And the wonder of that, in fact, is not the sales numbers, it's your mind meeting the mind of readers, encountering readers who engage themselves with your book.
Yes.
That's the real thrill of having people who read your book, whether they liked it or not. They've engaged themselves mentally with your book, and when you meet them, and I did lots of tours, it was meeting those readers that was the real thrill.
Yeah. They say writing is so isolated. It's quite wonderful to meet your readers.
Yeah, to break out of that isolation.
Yes.
Yeah, although mind you, it's an isolation I love because in fact you're alone in your brain, which is a very fertile place if you're busily writing a book.
Yeah. Now, there's been a lot of buzz over the years over the Life of Pi movie, but you were just telling me it is set to arrive in the not so distant future.
Yep, it's coming out. It's coming out November 21st.
Nice.
Cinemas everywhere. It's a big release. Directed by Ang Lee, the man who did
Wow.
Brokeback Mountain and
Lovely.
Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Sense and Sensibility, a whole bunch of movies. It's a big, huge production. Filmed in India, in Taiwan, and in Montreal. Yeah, it was very exciting. I was involved sort of on the outside. I read the screenplay a couple of times.
Yeah.
Made some comments to Ang Lee. And other than that, it was their production. It's interesting how writing down a boy in a lifeboat with a tiger are just a few words that you write on the page, and then you leave it to the reader to imagine it. To bring it to cinematic reality is unbelievable work.
Yeah.
To make it lifelike. So it's an extraordinary production. It was a very long shoot, 105 days.
Wow.
And involving lots of special effects, but also live action. So there's 4 real tigers that were used, in addition to computer-generated tigers.
Wow.
So, big, huge production.
You must be very excited. I'm excited, so I
Oh,
can't imagine
absolutely.
how you feel. Yeah.
Absolutely. Although I do feel slightly on the outside in the sense that, yes, I'm the author of the book, but a movie and the book it's based on are 2 very different things.
Yes.
They speak a different language.
Absolutely.
So yeah, of course I'm thrilled. There is a trailer, a teaser they call it, now to be seen in front of Prometheus. If you go and see it in 3D,
Great.
Prometheus, you'll see a Life of Pi teaser.
Nice.
Also, if you see Abraham Lincoln, Vampire Hunter, and Ice Age, you'll see the same teaser. It's about 45 seconds of the movie with no commentary, just it'll give you a sense of it already.
Good to know. Now we're running out of time, but we do need to touch on the Stephen Harper book. What is Stephen Harper reading? Can you just tell us the backstory of how that book came to fruition?
Well, at the head of our country right now is a man named Stephen Harper.
Yeah.
He may have certain strengths, obviously he does, he wouldn't be Prime Minister otherwise. But one of his weaknesses, I think, is in the matter of reading. And I don't think reading is inconsequential. I don't think it's just entertainment. Of course, it has to be entertaining, but it's not just that. I think books are a wonderful way to think. You can't be Prime Minister of this country without being a thinking person. The best way to put yourself in the skin of someone else is to read a novel, poem, or play about that. You want to know about 19th century Russia, you read the great Russian novelists. You want to know what it's like to be, black in America, you can read Toni Morrison.
Yeah.
And if someone has never made that trip into the skin of someone else, I wonder how they know about the world. Unless you've traveled a lot, which Stephen Harper has not. Like George Bush, he'd never been to Europe before he became Prime Minister.
Yeah.
He's had no great experience of life as an entrepreneur or a businessman. He's had none. So he's a man who's had a remarkably limited life, has read very little, and yet he's Prime Minister of our country.
Yeah.
And so what I tried to do is for 4 years, I sent him a book every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
All kinds of books to say, this is a good book. Read this and you will be that much the wiser, perhaps. You will live that much more. And I never got a response from him. And that to me shows, here we have a man who's not in dialogue, neither with the Canadian people, which does matter, nor with me, which in a sense doesn't really matter. So I wrote these letters with each book, and the whole collection of letters, 101 of them, I wrote 101 letters to the man, he never wrote back to me, is coming out, I think, in the fall.
So he's, even with the book coming out, he's never corresponded?
No.
Wow.
I got 7 letters from his staff, but anyone who writes to the Prime Minister will get a stock response from the Prime Minister's correspondence staff.
Wow.
But out of the blue, I got a letter from Barack Obama, who had read Life of Pi and liked it. And I'm not even American. He wrote to me, and yet my own Prime Minister, to whom I've written 101 times. And not just, one paragraph letters, quite lengthy letters describing the book and, just discussing intellectual matters, and it's never written back to me.
It is disheartening.
It is very disheartening.
Yeah. Now we're just about out of time, but I do want to ask you, because we had your partner Alice Kuipers on the show a few weeks ago, and it was such an engaging interview because she talked a lot about the balance in your household, and you're 2 very successful writers, you have 2 small children, and it must make for an interesting balance in the home.
Well, it's a fine balance. you have to manage your energies. You know, one way to do it is to have less sleep, which frankly, little children help you do that. Because, for example, I got up this morning at 4:30 because our little 1-year-old Lola decides to wake up at 4:30. So you're up with her.
Right.
You get more efficient. You know, when I'm in front of my computer working, I play chess a little bit less than I used to maybe before, you know, getting to writing. Yeah, you just have to focus your energies. It's like any life, whether you're a writer or an accountant or a doctor, whatever. You know, when you have small children, you have to balance your time, try to make it more efficient.
Yeah.
It's a challenge. It's a wonderful challenge, though. I mean, I find small children are like little running novels.
Yes,
There's
that's the truth.
endless character development, surprising twists in the plot. You know, hopefully as few accidents as possible.
Yeah.
So you know, it's like I live with 2 little novels and I'm working on one at the same time.
Oh, that's great.
It's all very creative.
Wow. Now, just before we go, what's in the future for Yann Martel?
Well, I'm working on my next book. It's
Yeah.
a novel in 3 parts. I've already finished part 1, and right now I'm doing the research for part 2. It's set in Portugal in 1904, 1938, and 1960-something. So 3 different segments, all related by certain motifs. It's going really well. It's pouring out of me the way Life of Pi poured out of me.
Wonderful.
So I hope to have a draft finished by spring of 13.
Great. Well, I just want to say this was remarkable for me to interview you. It was just such a pleasure. It was such a pleasure to be here on Divine Goddess. So I just want to thank you, and hopefully we'll get you back on the show.
Yep, thank you very much. Thank you for
bet.
having me on Lit Happens.
You bet. That is all the time we have today for Lit Happens. If you enjoyed today's episode, you can see previous segments on the Shaw TV website, and you can connect with us online on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. So I will see you next time on Lit Happens.